The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gsni. It's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the show, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, JordanRadio.com, where we keep you informed and inspired, broadcasting Black Focus Radio daily, 12 to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and RibRub.com, where we show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. Give me your hand, and I'll take you down through barbecue land. Catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And while there, be sure to review the Black Focus Radio archives of shows, and be sure to subscribe, like, and of all means, share it with some of your friends as well, okay? Don't forget to join my one-man campaign to try and get rid of the N-word. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment. It is the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address one another. And using a derogatory slur, that's just not good. And it's against our own people, is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. The bottom line is, just don't say it. One other quick thing, coming soon, save 15% on the upcoming release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook, written by Dante Sinkay and narrated by yours truly, David W. Coleman. Okay? Coming up on today's show, man, do we have a whopper for you. I'm going to make the case for reparations. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it, why they are needed, and there is no argument that white people can make against it. All right? Also, I'm going to talk about the 73-year-old grandmother who tried to choke the life out of a young student. The student probably deserved it, and I'll tell you why. Also, I think I'm going to share a personal moment with you. It's with me and a young brother I met late last week, and how I tried to empower him. I'm going to talk about that because all of the stuff that we're talking about today. Oh, by the way, I'm going to play a piece by Dr. Boyce Watkins, at least part of it, because it fits into just what we're going to be talking about today. Also, I want to remind you that Mexico now has universal health care. And why is it that the United States doesn't have it anymore? I don't know. Iran, Israel, and the United States. The culture of lies. And, did you see the Melania Trump presser last week? Yeah, I know. You're not friends with Epstein. You never were. Aren't you all about tired of these lies? We'll get into that here in just a moment as well. And last but not least, is what we must do. We're going to talk about all the things that we in the Black community, well, I won't say all, but some of the things that we here in the Black community have got to start addressing if we're going to be successful. Okay? So that's what's on the agenda today. I hope you'll stick and stay. Get out to Facebook right now. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. So in the meantime, it's time for Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
So as you know, the United Nations came down, at least 136 nations voted that slavery was basically a stain on humanity. And of course, Israel, the United States, Argentina was another one. Was it Argentina? There were three nations who decided that they were not, Argentina was the other one, that they were not going to vote for the resolution. And then, of course, the argument for reparations came up. And, of course, the United States, of all people, said that they cannot be held responsible for something that was legal then. Of course, the United States likes to make the determination on what's legal and what isn't. You know, Hitler could have made that same argument that during his reign, what he did to the Jews was legal. Didn't make any sense to you, did it? Did you see how I did my little dog head? You know, when a dog looks at you and he don't really understand what you're saying or doing, he kind of cocks that head to the one side or the other. So the United States argument is that they shouldn't pay reparations because at the time it was illegal, even though it was an affront to humanity. So today's Black Fact is going to address that for you guys. Okay? So let's start with this. The United States as an entity was created by killers, slave owners, rapists, thieves, pedophiles, and racists. So the confusion about what the country is and the way it is kind of baffles me. This does go to show that the United States did a good job with propaganda and indoctrination. That's one point. Let me continue because I think this is important. Let's talk a little bit about the Black Holocaust. Because when we talk about what happened in Germany with the Jews, 6 million Jews killed in concentration camps. Right now, to this day, I have not heard a quantifiable number of black people, Africans, who was killed in the Middle Passage alone. Now, I've heard 4 million, 5 million. That's just in the Middle Passage alone. How many black people were killed on the western shores of Africa? Those who were trying to escape, those who were fighting white people. How many blacks were killed when whites were trying to capture slaves or Africans to make them slaves? I've never heard a number. Never heard a number. How many of them died at Goree Island, the door of no return? No, I know you say it was legal at the time, so you're not responsible. So let me throw some other numbers at you. 246 years of slavery from 1619 to 1865. The United States argument is that during that time period, slavery was legal, which it really wasn't, because most of the British and the European countries had already outlawed slavery by 1865. But the United States says because it was still legal in America, reparations are not in order. Really? Okay. So from 1865 to 1964. Do you know what was occurring during that time period? It was something called Jim Crow. So if your argument is, the United States, that you don't believe you need to pay reparations, and the British has made that argument too, some of them, then, their argument is that how can you hold us accountable for things our ancestors did? Can you say white privilege? That's the British argument. The United States argument is that, hey, we can't be accountable because at the time slavery was legal. And even though we raped, killed, murdered, maimed all those people, we can't be responsible for that. Those were them folk. Okay? So from 1865 to 1964, are you responsible for that? What happened? Jim Crow. Y'all know. And the black codes. Y'all know. Were you responsible for that? Let me ask you another question. From 1882 to 1986, that was 86 years of lynching. So let's start at the beginning. First, you had 246 years of slavery from 1619 to 1865. Then you had 99 years of Jim Crow, which was from 1865 to 1964. Then you had 86 years of lynchings from 1882 to 1986. Hello? Oh, I forgot. You had 14 years of the civil rights fight from 1954 to 1968. And then, of course, you still have ongoing police brutality. It's from the day you hired slave owners or slave catchers to the day. Because if you don't know, police, they evolved from slave catchers. Hello? So you say you're not even responsible for that either. So your argument is, and see, my argument is that if I accept your premise that you cannot be responsible for what was legal at the time, but there are a whole lot of stuff that went on after 1865 that was illegal. What you thinking? Now you tell me. So I've got a little bit more for you, because my case for reparations debunks any justification that you try to say. Here's another. So remember, during that time period, you had the black codes. Now, this is after slavery. This is after 1865, when slavery, actually it was 1862 when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But after that, let's say, all right, I'll give you the 44 years of slavery. It was legal. It's stupid, your argument, but I'm going to give you that, white people. I'm going to give you that, Great Britain. I'm going to give you that, Australia. I'm going to give you that, Portugal. I'm going to give you that, the United States. But just speaking, because I don't live in those other countries, I live in the United States. So just speaking to the United States, your argument is that up until slavery was ruled illegal, you're not responsible for that. So let me ask you a question. Are you responsible for the black codes? I'm just asking for a friend. Because that was after slavery. Are you responsible for convict leasing? Because, you put together the black codes, basically, that two black men couldn't even congregate with one another, and they were arrested for loitering, and you sent them to work camps, and then your many southern states still used those people to pick their cotton, to chop their tobacco, under the guise of being legal because they were loitering. Hello? Do we get reparations for that? So you got the black codes, you got convict leasing. What about Jim Crow? Jim Crow. Things like voting, voter suppression, killing black people if they vote. What? Wait. I'm looking at a list that I've developed. Well, it's on there, but I'll get to that here in a moment. Let me go back to the black codes, or Jim Crow, where black people would show up to the polls and vote, to try to vote, and they'd have to pay a poll tax, or they'd have to guess how many jelly beans was in a jar, or you had stuff like grandfather clauses, where if your grandfather didn't vote, you can't vote. Y'all remember that, don't you? That was legal. Okay? That was legal. Let me give you another one. Redlining. Y'all know what redlining is, don't you? That still happens today. Okay? A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry epitomized what redlining was all about. That is, there were certain neighborhoods that black people couldn't buy homes in. Okay? Guess what? That still goes on today. Yes, it does. But, that should be illegal. So the black codes was illegal after 1865. Convict leasing should have been illegal after 1865. Jim Crow should have been illegal. Redlining is illegal. Sundown towns. Y'all know what a sundown town is. Don't let me catch her in this town after sundown. Those were legitimate. The Green Book that came out, there was a movie about that, by the way. That book was developed for black people who were traveling because there were certain towns that they couldn't go into, let alone stay overnight. Hello? What about COINTELPRO? Y'all know about COINTELPRO, don't you? This was the organization that J. Edgar Hoover put together to attack black leadership and the black movement. Black Panthers, the NAACP, SNCC, SCLC, the black Muslims, all of those. COINTELPRO was designed to undermine those black movements. If you want to read a great book, it's called The FBI versus Martin Luther King Jr. And you can get a feel. No, it's more than just a feel. You can get information straight from FBI files about how they tried to undermine the black movement. Okay? Don't let me forget about Fred Hampton, how he was murdered. Sundown towns, COINTELPRO, assassination of black leaders. I just talked about Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, okay, Medgar Evers. The list goes on and on and on. By the way, if you're just joining, I'm making the case for reparations because the United States said that they can't be responsible for things that were illegal at the time. So I've wiped out slavery. You say slavery was legal, so you can't be responsible for what happened. Although, I could go on and on about what happened during slavery. The rape of young girls, the assassination of men, the emasculation of men, the breeding farms. Even your founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, many of them owned slaves. So if they owned slaves, were they raping slaves? I know you don't want to listen or hear that, but they were. The crack epidemic. Remember, many of y'all don't remember Oliver North and the Iran-Contra problem. Y'all don't remember the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Y'all don't remember that. Oliver North and, y'all know him, Ronald Reagan were the architects of the crack epidemic in the black community. Because what you all don't know is that they were flying drugs from Nicaragua into America. So they would send arms to Nicaragua because Congress would not approve Ronald Reagan funding the Sandinistas. So he did it under the table. And Oliver North was his bag man. And they would fly CIA planes loaded with weapons to Nicaragua to give to the rebels. And then they would load up those same planes and fly those planes full of cocaine back to America. And that cocaine ended up on the streets of America and ended up into the black community where the crack epidemic was born. Hello? My case for reparations. mass incarceration. Because see, once the crack epidemic took hold in the black community, then private prisons popped up. And guess what happened? Black men, young black brothers, were being sentenced hand over fist to serve multiple years in jail in the prime of their lives. See, many of you all don't remember 5 and 500. You see, a black man, a young black brother selling crack on the street, if he had 5 grams of crack cocaine, it was mandatory 5 years in prison. But if a white boy was found with 500 grams of cocaine, many of them got probation, limited sentences. Now, you needed cocaine, the powder, to make the crack. But instead of targeting the white community who was importing the cocaine into America, they targeted the black community and locked up thousands. Not only did they lock up thousands, the crack cocaine destroyed thousands of lives. I don't know anyone who lived through that epidemic that doesn't know someone that didn't have a friend, a cousin, a family member that got hooked on crack cocaine. But I know reparations aren't in order. School segregation. You know, for a long time, they didn't want us to go to their public schools. I am a product of Little Rock Central, where the Little Rock Nine integrated that school in 1957. So now what are they doing? They're taking public school money that is designed to educate everybody and giving it to private schools. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like they're giving white rich people reparations all over again by defunding the public school system. Yet they don't want to give us reparations at all. And remember, when they outlawed slavery, what did they do? They gave slave owners reparations. The destruction of black towns. I know. Am I running long here? I'll be done here in a moment. If you followed me, you know that I went through many of those black towns during Black Facts. Places like Elaine, Ocoee, Tulsa, Chicago. The list goes on and on and on. Wilmington. 60 black towns destroyed. But y'all not responsible for those reparations either, are you? GI Bill exclusion. If you're just joining me, I'm making the case why reparations are in order. The GI Bill exclusion. You know, black people went to war. Black people have fought in every war since the American Revolution. Crispus Attucks, whom I wrote a report on back in the 2nd grade, was the first black person to die, or the first person to die in the American Revolution. Crispus Attucks. He was a black man. Okay? So once the GI Bill was created, it gave soldiers who fought for this country breaks on loans so they can buy homes when they came back. Black soldiers were not included in that. FHA loan denials. So couple that with the GI Bill exclusion. You know, black people couldn't move. The redlining couldn't move. The FHA were denying loans to black people so they could buy a house. So they ended up keeping them segregated in certain areas. But y'all don't need pay us reparations. Police lynchings. Now, you're saying I could go down a list of black people who have been modern day lynched. It started with Rodney King, but it had been going on long before that. The penultimate moment was George Floyd. And it continues today. It continues today. But nah, y'all don't deserve reparations. Media demonization. The media has been, I used to call the media the tell lies vision. One of my missions have been, since I've been doing this show, is to straight give you facts. Straight facts, homie. But the media has done more to demonize black people and the black community than anybody else. The classic example of what you're seeing today is that we've got a crook in the White House, and you see the media, most of them sucking up to this guy. That's why we got to have our own. And that's why places like Joynet Radio and Black Focus Radio are essential to getting the word out. Land theft from black farmers. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the Donald Trump invited farmers to the White House to talk about money that he wanted to give to these farmers. He didn't invite the black ones. Which reminds me, I'm going to talk about Holly Schaffner later on if I get a chance. So those are the points that I wanted to make. That when you tell me that we as black people don't deserve reparations because at the time that you committed the atrocities against black people, it was legal. And oh, by the way, the British now wants to sanction Ghana and many African nations because they are demanding reparations. You can't make this stuff up. It's kind of like they stole all the artifacts and statues, and when those African nations asked for them back, they said, no, it's ours. Well, wait a minute, you stole them. It's kind of like what Israel has done. You've stolen land, and now the Palestinians are fighting for that land back, and you're calling them terrorists when you are the terrorist. I'm going to get into that later on. So, the question is, are reparations in order? The answer is obvious. I just gave you a whole list of why, and that is sans the 246 years of slavery. Now, if you add slavery in it, come on. Come on, America. Come on, world. You've had opportunity after opportunity to make amends, and you went through years. After slavery, almost another 100 years of doing things to black people to keep them down. And you continue to do it today. Are reparations in order? I just made the case. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that Black Fact. We'll be talking more about that. The goal of Black Focus Radio is to make sure that we speak truth to power. And any stupid argument that white people or the white world wants to make to say that they're not responsible because it was their ancestors, well, okay. Let's give back all the stuff that you've accumulated over the centuries, or I should say, since the inception of America, that your white fathers got, based on free labor, based on slavery, based on raping little girls and little boys and selling grown men and women. It wasn't until 1858, or I should say 1868, that this country recognized black people as human beings. Black people were considered chattel. That was the Plessy versus Ferguson argument. Hello? So yeah, we deserve reparations, and until you make good, that stain will take you to your grave. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. Hey friends, David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Products and ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com. It's where you will find the best dry marinade for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats and vegetables. We're gearing up for a very busy season, so I want you to make sure you take advantage of the great sale we've got going on right now. It's the Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box. It comes in 3 great flavors: hot and spicy, original, or scorching, or a 4th combination box. What is a Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box? Well, I'm glad you asked. You get 3 bags of Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub, 3 bags of Coleman's Dynamic Rib Nuts, a bag of Coleman's Dynamic Fry Dust, and of course, you get a bottle of rib juice, pepper juice, and rib dust. You can't beat that. Order a Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box today and get a digital copy of the Coleman's Dynamic Recipe Book. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now is the time to place that order for Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box before the holiday rush. And remember, bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at ribrub.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. If you just missed it, go back, rewind. I made the case for reparations. It is prima facia evidence. And from this point on, any white person that tells you otherwise, just send them this clip. Okay? All right. So this segment, I want to talk a little bit about, I typically don't, well, let me put it this way. I meet a lot of people, and I've met a lot of people while I'm here. So I want to talk about a young brother that I met. And I also want to talk about the 73-year-old grandmother who was arrested. She was a bus driver for trying to choke the bejesus out of a young kid, okay? And both of this segment, it plays into a clip that I want to play by Dr. Boyce Watkins. I like Dr. Boyce Watkins. He does and says some things that I don't agree with, and that's anyone you meet. But overall, I think he makes some great points, and I really respect him a lot. So I want to talk a little bit about the grandmother who was a bus driver, and she ended up choking a kid, okay? She's 73 years old. She's out there trying to earn a living, and apparently, and I'm going to read you the story from blacknews.com, okay? Because I think it's interesting, and I'd like to hear your take on it. And I'm going to give you mine here in a moment. Effie Wynn, a 73-year-old African-American woman, school bus driver from Lynchburg, Virginia, was arrested for allegedly strangling a student on a bus while parked at a school. Police say she faces strangulation and child neglect charges. Lynchburg police responded to Lincoln Elementary on March 30th after a report of a disorderly individual. When officers arrived, they began investigating an incident reported inside a school bus parked on the school property. According to WSET, the investigation revealed that Nguyen allegedly assaulted the student on the bus during an encounter. Police worked with Lynchburg City Schools during the inquiry and determined that the child was strangled. Authorities confirmed the child was safe following the incident and did not suffer life-threatening injuries. Officials did not release additional details about the child's condition. Nguyen was taken into custody on April 4th and formally charged with strangulation and child neglect. Police said the case remains under active investigation with more updates expected as new information is verified. School officials continue to cooperate with law enforcement as the investigation moves forward. Okay, let me just say this. I wasn't there. I can't tell you why Miss Effie Nguyen started strangling that child. But you know, just as I do, you got some idea. Now, this was a bus driver, okay? She's been, I don't know how long, it doesn't say how long she was a bus driver, but clearly she has been dealing with them kids at least all year long, because this happened in late March. And so something had to trigger Sister Effie Nguyen, 73-year-old, to take her hands and wrap them around the throat of a kid. Now, let me just make a suggestion. Do you think that kid was probably being disrespectful to Miss Nguyen? Do you think so? Raise your hand. My hand's raised. Do you think that little snotty-nosed kid may have not just been disrespectful that day, but had probably been disrespectful to Miss Nguyen the whole school year? Raise your hand if you think that's a possibility. Now, I'm not saying that's what it was, but something triggered Miss Nguyen. Was it senility? Did she have a flashback of something? Maybe she had been abused as a child. No, I'm not going to buy that argument. My argument is that Miss Nguyen had had enough of this child. Now, I know what you're saying. All you people who, a child can't do no wrong. Really? You know, here's the one thing I know. I'll be 65 in a month, okay? And here's one thing I know. That I got my butt beat by my mama a couple of times. Now, I didn't get a lot of beatings because I didn't like getting beatings. I didn't like having to walk out in the backyard and pick your switch. That was torture enough. You know, it's funny. When we moved in the house on 24th and Schiller, I kid you not, the first thing we did, me and my brother, is went out in the backyard to see if there were any of them switches that, you know, your parents, and, you know, after a while, and there were a lot of them, there were a whole lot of bushes out there. Eventually, them bushes got cut down. We were like, yes, them bushes are gone. No more switches. But you know what? A switch, look, we weren't that bad. My aunt used an extension cord with knots in them. And look, I know what y'all saying. Oh, no wonder. Oh, that was terrible. That was child abuse. But here's the thing. If it wouldn't have been for them extension cords, and I remember my aunt used like a tree limb, Aunt Maggie. She kept it under her bed. I'm sorry. I'm having flashbacks. Let me just tell you the story of me and Pat, my cousin. My aunt wouldn't buy a new car for whatever reasons. I don't know why. She would never buy a new car. And she had one of these old cars. And my mom had a new car. My mom had just bought a Chevy Impala. I'll never forget, it was aqua green. My cousin, Pat, his aunt had just bought a Buick Wildcat. Okay? It was dark blue with a white top. But Aunt Maggie, who didn't have any kids, she wouldn't buy a new car. She was a miser of the family. So we were down at Aunt Maggie's, and all 3 cars were parked in Aunt Maggie's yard. And me and Pat was outside. We were the boys. And we had there were little pebbles in my aunt's yard. And we would take these little pebbles, and we shouldn't have been doing this because we probably was going to mess up some paint jobs. But we would say, throw a rock at the pretty car. Click up, click up. So we throw a rock at the Malibu and the Wildcat. All right? Throw a rock at the green car. Click up, click up. Now throw a rock at the ugly car. Click up. Pat messed around, and instead of throwing it at the bumper, he threw it and it hit the window. It was a little bitty pebble. And the window just said crack. But we didn't laugh, because although I knew I didn't throw the rock, I knew I was going to get my butt beat. Sure enough, we had to go inside and tell Aunt Maggie what had happened. And Aunt Maggie got under her bed where she kept her whooping stick. And I mean a stick. That stick had to be at least 3-4 inches in diameter. And she beat the brakes off of Pat Lee, my cousin. She whacked me a couple of times too, but I was like, I was moving. So what's my point in telling you that story, or these stories? We got our butts beat. We got whoopings. We didn't get stand in the corner. We didn't get put your nose on the wall. We didn't get give me 25, although we got some of those too, because my Boy Scout leader, Mr. Towns, did that. I even got a spanking from one of my ministers at the church, Reverend Nehemiah Mitchum. Still loved him to death. Here's my point, is that we grew up pretty damn good. We really did. So back to Sister Wynn. See, Sister Wynn grew up in my era. She's 73. I'm 65. So I've told people over and over again, stop messing with old people. An old man will shoot your ass quicker than anything else. And an old woman will whack you quicker than anything else. Stop messing with old people. And that little kid, that little knuckleheaded kid, was messing with Miss Wynn, Sister Effie Wynn. And Sister Effie started saying, okay. I know she was contemplating it. I know she was, and I got a feeling Sister Wynn was a Christian woman too. And I know she probably prayed about it. She probably said, Lord, these kids are so bad today. I don't want to knock fire from one of them, but if one of them does this, whatever that little kid did, if one of those kids do this to me one more time, they're going to have to take me to jail. I already know what Sister Wynn said. I already know it. And that little kid picked the wrong day to try Sister Wynn. And Sister Wynn put her hands around his neck and probably shook his ass like a rag doll. Something that his mama and daddy probably should have done a long time ago. You know, I've been seeing a lot of videos of these women who have children and they're stepdads. And the stepdads aren't allowed to discipline those children. Huh? Then they grow up like that little kid, Miss Effie, had to choke out. So here's what I'm saying to you. Free Effie, free Effie, free Effie. I even posted, when I saw this post, I even posted to see if she had a GoFundMe, because she deserves a GoFundMe, because you know it and I know it, that these kids are out of line. Every one of them. Today's kids, what the hell has happened to them? I know, they're not getting parents. They're not getting parenting, and they're not getting their butts kicked. Because when a little 12, 13-year-old kid think that you can come up to me, grown-ass David W. Coleman, and disrespect me, you better be lucky that I don't knock 5 from you too. I'm just saying. So I'm gonna say it again. And I'll keep you posted on Miss Effie Wynn. Because if she comes up with a GoFundMe, I've been even thinking about starting a GoFundMe myself for her. Free Effie. Because she was tired. You're tired. And by the way, we're tired of these parents letting these kids grow up like wild weeds with no discipline whatsoever. Every one of them parents, they need their tails kicked too. And on that note, free Effie Wynn. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. By now, most of you all know that I'm from down south, although I do live in the DMV area now, and I still stay in touch with what's going on in my home state of Arkansas. And of course, I consider Tennessee my home state as well, because I lived in that state for 30-something years and started my radio career. So I want to talk a little bit quickly about something Sarah Jethrine Bodine Sanders said last week in her State of the State. And it all boils down to, because I'm a little tired of these white people trying to pretend like this is a Christian nation when that lie couldn't be further from the truth. Because you heard the black fact. There's nothing that this country has ever done that was Christian, and it continues to do things under the guise of God. When if God walked up to him and said, "Hey, what's up?" they try to put him in jail because God wouldn't look like them, or Jesus wouldn't look like they think he'd be a black man. Okay? So she said, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, that this nation was created one nation under God, indivisible. Well, y'all know I love the Constitution. Ain't nothing in the Constitution. And one show we're going to have something, we're going to do the amendments. I'm going to just call that show the amendments. We're going to talk about the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and certainly the 25th Amendment, which is certainly should be in play right now. So here's a governor in the state of Arkansas who wants to try to claim what this nation is all about, yet she is stealing money from public schools and sending it to private schools. It recently came out that 90% of the money that they've allotted are going to rich white people in Arkansas. Hello? But the point I'm trying to make here is that here's a governor that doesn't even know the Constitution. How the hell did she become governor? Oh, po white trash. Let's be real about it. That's what Arkansas is a po white trash state. That's what it is. I lived there. I grew up there. That's why when I left, it took me a long time to go back. And then when I went back, I left again. And this time I won't be going back. I've already told my kids that when I die, whatever you do, don't take me back to Arkansas and don't bury me in Arkansas. Good, I'm close to the Atlantic Ocean right now, so all you can do is get my little ashes and just dump them into the Atlantic and let my ashes float back to the motherland. Yep. But anyway, I want to talk about Holly Schaffner. She's from Arkansas. Holly Schaffner is the Democratic senator or Democratic nominee for senator in the state of Arkansas. And you know, I've really come to I'm at a dilemma in my life because, see, I'm an independent. I'm sick of the Republicans and I'm sick of the demagogues. That's what I call them. The demagogues and the Republicans. That's who they are. A left wing and a right wing is part of the same bird. And sometimes I have to hold my nose and vote for some of these miscreants. I will argue that Holly Schaffner is one of those miscreants. Holly Schaffner is a farmer from Newport. From what I understand, she was at the top of her class, got a full ride to Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm very familiar with Vanderbilt. I will argue to you that many of those people at Vanderbilt, they don't necessarily hang with the hoi polloi in that city. Oh, they like the black athletes, but they don't go over to Tennessee State or Fisk or places like that. Here's what irks me about Holly Schaffner. She apparently, and I guess I really should have looked this up, I would like to find out how many black people are on her staff. Because she's running against Tom Cotton. And I see her on my Facebook feed often. I don't ever hear her talk about black issues. I'm just saying she might. I don't see everything she does. I don't see where she has met with black officials to see what they need if she becomes senator. You know, I've been making the argument for a long time that black people need to start voting in blocks, whereas that they should come to, as a matter of fact, the African American Network, ran by, I'm butchering the name, but ran by Al Sharpton, had a conference this past week in New York, and all of the potential presidential candidates, white and black alike, was going to that convention. You see, that's what black people ought to be doing, is you need to come to us and make your case why you need our vote and what you're going to do with it. I don't know that Holly Schaffner has done that yet. And here's what if I were living in Arkansas, I would not vote for Holly Schaffner. Here's why. You cannot expect me to vote for you when you are pissing on our leaders. When you don't want to be seen with our leaders. See, you don't get to decide who my leader is. You see, that's why, that's why I got so upset with Barack Obama. When white people said, hey, if you want to be president, you need to get rid of Jeremiah Wright. Although Barack Obama had literally had his children to grow up in the same church that Jeremiah Wright led. But white people was uncomfortable with Jeremiah Wright because Jeremiah Wright was calling white people to the table. And Obama, to be president, he said, oh, look, Jeremiah, I got to let you go. And since then, he has not even went back and apologized to Jeremiah Wright. I got a bone to pick with you, Obama. Now, he may have said something private. We don't know. But the bottom line is this, is that if Holly Schaffner wants the black vote, then you're not going to be pissing on our black leaders. I don't like all of them. Some of them get on my nerves. But at the end of the day, when Kamala Harris is coming to Arkansas and you, who is the potential Democratic nominee, won't even go and meet with her, and you purposely make the comment that you don't want to be anywhere near her. Now, I'm paraphrasing. The question I got to ask black folks, because a lot of black folks ain't going to vote for her. She told her draws. If she had any chance to beat Tom Cotton, you're going to need the black vote. And you're not going to get the black vote by pissing on black leaders. And that's what she's done. Don't trust her anyway because she's from Newport. You got to know Arkansas to know about Newport. Okay? But I despise Tom Cotton so much that it would be nice if he lost his seat. But see, Holly Schaffner has already told us, she's already shown the black community and the minority community that she's not going to be going to Washington for you. She's going to be going to Washington for farmers. And oh, by the way, when Donald Trump decided that he would exclude black farmers from that meeting he had a couple of weeks ago, did Holly Schaffner say anything about that? Did she come to the aid and defend black farmers? Because there are quite a few black farmers in Arkansas. I know a few. Did she? I didn't see anything. And I tell you what, I'm going to do a little research. And if I find something, I'll get back to you all. So here's my point, and then we'll go to the top of the hour. It's hard for me to tell black folks to vote for a Democrat who clearly says, I don't really give a damn about y'all. Y'all got to vote for me anyway. Where else you going to go? And that's what some of these white Democrats are saying. That's what they're saying about James Tallarico in Texas. You see, here's my point. See, black people have, if you go back to the beginning of the show, you see all the things that black people have suffered throughout the history of this country. Whether we vote for you all or not, black people still gonna be black people. We still gonna be black people, and with or without you. So if you want our vote, then we are not going to let you crap on our leaders. And the fact that you don't want to go meet Kamala Harris, who is right now still an icon in the Democratic Party, I'm gonna be hard pressed to pull that lever. I know what people are saying. Well, if you don't vote for her, you're going to get Tom Cotton again. Yeah, that's a hard choice. And right now, I ain't ready to make that choice. And thank goodness I'm not in Arkansas. All right, we're going to take the top of the hour break. When we come back, I'm going to give you the story of the young black brother that I met last week, that I opened up to him, and it became an emotional conversation between the two of us. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens. Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. Don't forget, coming soon, you're going to get a 15% discount on the new audiobook, The Pain of Vengeance, written by Dante Sinkay and narrated by yours truly, David W. Coleman. So stay tuned. We're going to get you, it is going to be published by May 31st. But if you order before then, you're going to get a 15% discount. So I'll make sure I get you some more information on that once we get a few more details. All right. So last hour, we talked about the case for reparations. That was the black fact. Okay. We talked about the 73-year-old grandmother who tried to choke the living daylights or choke some sense into a elementary school child. We also talked about Holly Schaffner, who wants to run for the Senate. She wants your vote, the black vote, yet she's crapping on black people. Need to go back and check that out. This hour, I'm going to tell you about a story of a young black brother that I met. We're also going to talk a little bit about Mexico health, and we got to talk about Melania. And, of course, what we must do. So let's jump into it. So I've had the opportunity since I've been here in the Baltimore area to meet a lot of people. It has changed my perspective on a lot of things, because when you meet people and you get to know people and you talk to people, you begin to realize that things are a little bit different than what you may have thought earlier. I've met people from various parts of the state, various parts of the country, and most importantly, and the most exciting thing, I've met people from various parts of the world. And when you talk to them, you begin to realize that what you may have already believed, the stereotype that you may have engendered in your own mind, is not the case. That's why this roundup of people who are undocumented is so disturbing to me. But I won't get into that. I want to talk about this young brother. He's from Baltimore, okay? And he came into my purview, and you can always tell when somebody wants to talk. And fortunately for what I do, I basically have a bully pulpit, and I'm basically like a counselor to people that I don't know. It's crazy. They just open up and talk to me. Let me talk to that guy face. Do I have that? Is it the gray beard? I don't know, but they just like to talk to me. So the brother comes into my purview, and he just says out loud, after speaking, he says, "Man, I'm nervous. Man, I'm nervous. Man, I'm nervous." He says it 3 times. I didn't really pay the first couple of times any attention. But the third time, they say when they want to stress something to you, 3 is the magic number. You see, when you hear a speaker and he's speaking and he says the rain in Spain rains mainly on the plain. And he says that 3 times. Then he's trying to make a point. The 3rd time the young man said, man, I'm nervous. I said, you okay? What are you nervous about? And he goes on to tell me that he's going to get an apartment, or he's going to meet some people so he can get an apartment. He also goes on to tell me about a 6-month-old son that he has, and how looking in this young man's eyes has changed his life. He's not doing what he used to do. And as we went through the conversation, it became very apparent to me that there was something going on that this young man needed to talk about. And I just asked him, I said, how old are you? He says, I'm 21. I said, this is your only child? Yes, sir. He said, I'm nervous that they at first said it was okay, and then they wanted me to come and meet them before they would give me the apartment. And I'm trying to get an apartment for my son and my girl. I live with my mom and I help my mom out, and that's cool, but I'm trying to be a man now. Woo! 21. Young brother trying to be a man now. So anytime I meet a young brother who's trying to better himself, I'm all ears. I'm trying to, if I can't give you anything, but see, I can always give them something. So I decided that I was going to give this young brother some knowledge. I said, let me ask you a personal question. You on paper? He hesitated for a moment. He said, yeah. He said, I was in for 6 months. He said, I was supposed to be there for 7 years. And just by the grace of God, I forgot what the technicalities was, but he only had to stay in for 6 months. And he's on paper for 3 years. Now, those of you who don't know that lingo, when you say someone is on paper, that means they are they've been paroled, and they are on paper. They got to report to a parole officer once a month. They've got to get a job. This young brother already had a job. He was trying to get a place for his girl and his son, because he said looking in his son's eyes changed his life. Whew. I said, did it really? So I'm one of those people, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when I turn 65. But I told him, I said, look, brother, if you are serious, I told him about my story and my son. I told him how I had to fight an entire state to be part of my son's life. I told him how I almost committed suicide. And I will tell you right now that in this conversation by now, I was crying. Tears were rolling because they weren't rolling because I was faking, but I wanted this young brother to understand my sincerity. And I told him that you are that child's role model. I asked him, I said, did you know your daddy? I already knew the answer. He said, no. I said, let me tell you something, brother. Neither did I. As a matter of fact, my mother died and never told me, my father, who he was. And even today, it wrecks me. My daughter has turned over leaf and everywhere to try to help me find the name of my father. It has affected me so much. And I said, because of that, that's why I fought the state of Tennessee. Tears are rolling. He's crying. He was like, wow, brother. I said, let me tell you something, man. And I told him about how my son And I hate to be putting my son out here, but I think this is important. Because, see, during the time that I was fighting the state, I did have visitation. And I was working for the radio station. And I was covering the Titans and the Predators and the SEC. And quite often, my son would be with me. And I would have to call those professional sports franchises, the communications director who was over that, the ticketing, and say, look, my son is here with me. I don't have a babysitter. I don't trust people to keep my son. Would it be okay if I purchased a ticket so he could come with me so I can do my job and make sure he's safe? Fortunately, Jerry Helper for the Predators, Mike Keith for the Titans, and yes, I'm calling their name because they were great to me. They said, no problem. You know what they did? They gave me press passes for my son. And during the time, and I told this young brother how my son during the football games would sit right beside me. During the hockey games, he would sit down in the parents section. When we'd go to Grizzlies, he'd sit down in the family section. He was like, wow. I said, and then I told him the story. I said, last weekend, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to get emotional, but I'm kind of emotional. Last weekend, and if you've been watching my Facebook page, you saw me post pictures from the hockey game, the Washington Capitals and the Buffalo Sabres. We went to see Ovechkin, my son and I. The next night, Saturday, we went back to D.C. to see the Nationals and the Dodgers. And we were sitting in a suite. And my son was so proud that he was taking his daddy to games because I had done that to him literally all of his life. And during the game with the Nats and the Dodgers, we sat aside in the suite by ourselves, and he told me, he said, Dad, I don't know what I'd do without you. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you. And it gives me great joy that I can bring you to games. By the way, we also went to see the Orioles and the Giants this past Saturday night. He said, it gives me great joy that I can do these things for you because without you, I wouldn't even be here. See, I remember when I spent 11 days in the Vanderbilt psych ward because I was trying to take my life. 11 days. I told this young brother this. It was my son, who at the time was about 9 years old, and I hadn't called him. And he said, Dad, you hadn't called me. I said, yeah, I've been kind of ill. He said, ill? I said, yeah, I almost died. At the time, I didn't tell him I almost took my life. I said, I almost died. He paused for a moment. And he said, Dad, if something happened to you, what would I do? See, you have to understand that up until that call, I refused to participate in group, take medication. And they said, until you start participating in group and take medication, you're not leaving. I didn't care at the time. It had gotten so bad that they took my shoelaces. But it was that call. Dad, what would I ever do without you? That brought me back. And after that conversation, I cried like a baby. I went back upstairs and I started participating in group. I started taking the medication that they were prescribing for me. And I got better. And I healed. And they finally gave me my shoestrings back, because my big thing, for whatever reasons, was I want my shoestrings. I told this young brother this story. I told him, I said, let me tell you something. Do you want your child to grow up without their father? Because if it's upsetting to you, he's going to repeat the cycle. Do you want him to be on paper? He even told me what he had done. He had some drugs and a weapon, an illegal weapon. 7 years he was getting. He's probably listening. That's why I'm not going to call his name. But if you are listening, I appreciate you, young brother. And anytime you want to reach out to me, you can. But I think I'm hoping this story will open the eyes of some of these other young brothers. Because I'm going to play the Dr. Boyce Watkins tape here in just a moment. Or I should say a clip. And I'm hoping these young brothers understand something. That this is all by design to keep you locked up and in prison. And at some point, we are going to have to recognize that this is a problem. It starts, and I gave him the statistics, the common denominator of all the negative behavior of our children is fatherlessness. If you don't want your child to grow up to be like you, then you need to be in his life. Not only do you need to do that, you also need to get rid of your friends, because I guarantee you they weren't your friends. They want you to be on paper just like they are on paper. It's the crab in the barrel mentality. If you want to save your son, then you must first save yourself. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker to this story. I said this. I said, if you want to really get revenge, I said, listen to this. The best revenge is success. And he paused for a moment. And you know what he said? He said, wow. He said, I was talking to my grandmother earlier this morning, and she said the same thing. The best revenge is success. So if you're mad, if you want to, those people who already have written you off, become successful. You don't have to lift a finger. I said, those other guys that's still hanging out on the corner, they want you to be just like them. Because we've glorified drugs, gangs, and violence. We've glorified men walking away from their children. We've glorified women walking around with their asses all out. We've glorified them having 4, 5, 6 different babies by 6 different men. We've glorified that in our music. Listen to this tape by Dr. Watkins and see what you think.
Black people changed when our music changed. When we started calling ourselves niggas, bitches, and hoes, then suddenly, guess what? We started acting like niggas, bitches, and hoes. And that became popular. We got to the point where we started to glorify the drug dealer more than we glorified the school teacher. We looked up to the irresponsible man as opposed to the man who loved his family. We actually started to celebrate all the things that kill people, all the things that involve excesses, whether it's hypersexuality, making ourselves look like animals, making ourselves look like we love to get high and drunk at every available opportunity, that we are financially irresponsible, and that we don't even care about our own children. So maybe there's a bigger question here. The AKAs are an organization. AKA convention because apparently he was acting like Trick Daddy, and that kind of threw some people off. Now, first thing I would ask is who chose to book him, because you don't book Trick Daddy unless you expect to get Trick Daddy. But here's the deeper issue. Dr. George Fraser stated in a documentary called B1 the Movie that black people changed when our music changed. When we started calling ourselves niggas, bitches, and hoes, then suddenly, guess what? We started acting like niggas, bitches, and hoes. And that became popular. We got to the point where we started to glorify the drug dealer more than we glorified the school teacher. We looked up to the irresponsible man as opposed to the man who loved his family. We actually started to celebrate all the things that kill people, all the things that involve excesses, whether it's hypersexuality, making ourselves look like animals, making ourselves look like we love to get high and drunk at every available opportunity, that we are financially irresponsible, and that we don't even care about our own children. So maybe there's a bigger question here. The AKAs are an organization that is full of women who are worthy of prestige.
That's Dr. Boyce Watkins. And if those of y'all don't know what happened, the AKAs had a convention and they invited Trick Daddy. Trick Daddy is a rapper. He is one of the most disgusting rappers out there. And far as I'm concerned, the majority of them are disgusting. And he got up on stage with his debauchery and they ended up having to run him off the stage. Now, why would you, the AKAs, even think about inviting that guy? And what Dr. Watkins was saying is that we have begun to glorify everything that is negative. Part of the campaign that I'm on to get rid of the N-word is precisely that. Instead of calling our young brothers, what are we calling them now? Young niggas. Think about that. So you are imparting a negative stereotype on our young brothers even before they realize it. That's what Dr. Watkins was saying. And what I was trying to say to that young brother is that you got to rise above that brother, because you got a 6-month-old son that needs you. You got to break the cycle. And I told him the story of my son purposely because I wanted to break the cycle. And I can sit here today and say I did. And if I can do it, you black man can do it too. Hello. Hello. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. On joinnetradio.com. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. Send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Here's a quote for you. Until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, everywhere is war. Hello. That's by the great Haile Selassie. You see, that's why we're at war with Iran. And see, now we're beginning to realize, more so than anything else, that the fool in the White House was duped. But fools are easily duped when they have no substance. And the criminal in chief has no substance. We're finding out more and more and more about his lack of integrity. Hey, look, told you that back in 2016, but you didn't care. As a matter of fact, you can go to my wall and I posted a cartoon. And on one side of the cartoon, or I should say, there's a fence. And the fence separates MAGA voters and MAGA politicians. Okay? And when you look at the MAGA voters, and matter of fact, the fence is built so high that you can't even see into where the MAGA voters are. On the other side is MAGA politicians. There's barbed wire on the top of that fence. So the MAGA voters can't even climb up to look to see what's on the other side of the fence. Well, guess what's on the other side of the fence? It's the MAGA politicians. And you know what? Oh, by the way, on the MAGA voter side of the fence, you got rundown houses, garbage everywhere. It's a shanty town. On the other side, where the MAGA politicians are, you got limousines, swimming pools, men walking around in suits, golf courses, mansions. That's what they do. They've pitted poor people against poor people, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. I've told you over and over again, we should stop voting for millionaires to run this country. You see, by the way, it was the millionaires who went to the Supreme Court and got Citizens United ratified because they wanted to be able to pay off politicians. Just recently I heard, or I read, well, was it Roundup or Monsanto? One of those chemical companies has paid off politicians in Washington to stop the suits of people because their pesticides are killing Americans. So they've paid off politicians to write legislation to keep them from being sued for killing Americans, yet they are laughing all the way to the bank. If you remember, Donald Trump asked the oil industry to give him $20 billion, or was it? Yeah, it was $20 billion, I believe. And he would make sure that he takes care of them. Well, see Iran right now. Look at the oil prices. Have you looked at the oil prices, the gas prices lately? Huh? The gas prices within 2 weeks went up almost $1.25 where we are. Now, I don't know where you are, but it doesn't matter because it happened to you too. Okay? You had millionaires telling you that, oh, you can handle some short-term pain for some long-term gain. I believe that was Howard Lutnick who said that, the same Howard Lutnick who was an Epstein buddy. By the way, remember the statistic I gave you last show? 51% of the people that are in our Congress, in the Senate and the legislature or in the legislative body, I should say, 51%, that includes senators and congressmen, are millionaires. There are only 5% millionaires in America. That number is incongruent. There are only 5% of the American population that are millionaires, yet 51% of that 5% is in Congress. And they're passing laws that benefit themselves. They don't give a damn about you. It don't matter if you're Republican. It don't matter if you're a Democrat. It don't matter if you're independent. It don't matter if you're white. It don't matter if you're black. It don't matter if you're Latina. They don't give a damn about you if you're not a millionaire. So why the hell are y'all still voting for those people? Hello? See, that's the problem. And they know it. They call them the culture wars. They can pit you against, and I've read the Lyndon Baines Johnson quote over and over again. Paraphrasing, he basically says, if you can teach the poorest white man that he's better than the richest black man, then he'll literally open up his pocket so you can rob him. Hello? I've told the story back in the day when they asked white people if they could come back as Michael Jordan, would they? The people in that survey said no. Michael Jordan? The Michael Jordan with all the money? NBA superstar? And you as a poor white man, if you had a choice to come back with Michael Jordan, you wouldn't? You see, that answer tells you about white privilege, that they understand that no matter how poor they are, see, when you poor, you can't even put the OR on it because you're poor. They don't give a damn about anything else except their white privilege. They know it exists. They know it exists. Donald Trump is the epitome of that. The fact that he's president of the United States is nothing more than white privilege. Because name a black man, name any man of color that if they had his track record, let's forget about the rapes. Let's forget about Epstein, where he ran 6 businesses in the ground, where he didn't want black people at in his hotel. He didn't want black people counting his money. He only wanted Jews counting his money. He took out a loan, or I should say a full-page ad in the New York Times where he wanted black boys killed for a crime they didn't commit. And even after it was proven that they had nothing to do with the crime and their lives had been ruined, he still refused to apologize. Hello? That's the epitome of white privilege. So it kind of goes back to my black fact that every white man knows that the fact that he is white, there's an innate privilege that he benefits from by being in America. Hello? So this is why this man can do what he does. And you see, none of these Republicans are doing anything to stop him. They are shirking their responsibility. They're abdicating their oaths of office by allowing this man to do the things that he is doing. And you know why? It goes back to that 51%. Because see, 51% of those people are millionaires and billionaires. Hello? So it's easy for you to say short-term pain for long-term gain because you ain't going to the pumps, white boy. Rich white boy. You're not going grocery shopping. You're not having to call the utility company and ask for an extension because you can't afford to pay your utility bill this month. White boy. Rich white boy. That's the problem. That's the problem here. So now, here's the president on Easter Sunday basically cussing out the Iranians. You all have heard the quote by now. I won't even share it. Using the F-bomb on one of the most sacred days of Christianity. Now, those of you who've been running around saying this man is a Christian, do you think he's a Christian now? Or is he a Christian nationalist? Because see, a Christian and a Christian nationalist is two different things. Okay? A Christian is someone who reads the Bible and tries to live by the Bible. A Christian nationalist is someone who uses the Bible for political gain. Hell, I won't even use the word Christian on Donald Trump, because we know he isn't. He's the same man when asked what his favorite scripture was, he didn't even know one. He's the same man who, when in public walking with the Bible, had the Bible upside down. I'm just going to say it. If there's a hell, I hope he goes to hell with gasoline draws on. I'm just saying. This is your president. And on Tuesday, he then comes out and literally threatens the entire nation of Iran because you thought that, we're just going to go bomb Iran because, Bibi Netanyahu told us that it would be easy to bomb Iran. By the way, let me put a pin in that real fast. Remember back in the early 2000s, do you remember weapons of mass destruction? WMDs. You remember we went and fought a war in Iraq. We murdered Saddam Hussein. Oh, by the way, we did murder Gaddafi as well because of weapons of mass destruction. You know who gave us that information? Israel. Hello? You know who gave us the information on Iran? Israel. Hello? Y'all following this, right? The same country that is getting, $3-4 billion a year from us? The same country who claims that terrorists are attacking them when in fact they are the terrorists? We just got to call a spade here now. He went and fought this war because he wanted to get the Epstein files off the front page, and he forgot that dog ain't gonna hunt. Hello? Well, at some point, the American people are gonna have to wake up. At some point, you're gonna have to say, enough is enough. By the way, have y'all went and applied for any of those jobs that those immigrants are no longer doing because y'all deported them? It's taking you a little longer to get that roof on that house, isn't it? Yeah, I know. Oh, fruit and vegetables are a little more expensive now? Is that what you're saying? Oh, that's right, because a lot of it is rotting in the fields because they don't have people to pick them. But you're going to go and pick them, right? You're going to send your son. I'll tell you what, why don't y'all just have a family day and go out to the strawberry patches and pick all the strawberries you can. You can even eat some. No, you can't. Hello? So, what's my point in this segment? Because all of us better wake up here. Because it's clear that these rich people are robbing the American people blind. They're getting inside and trading information on when he's going to stop fighting and when he's not going to stop fighting. They thought that, we're going to go and we're going to bomb Iran and it'll be a picnic and I'm going to be a hero. Here's the one thing that you need to do. Two things. Number one, Israel is pushing this because, see, Israel wants to be the power in the Middle East. They don't want, if they could bomb Egypt, they would. The only reason they won't go after Egypt is because Egypt already has a nuclear weapon. Okay? So the reason they went after Iran, the reason they went after Iraq is because of Israel, and Israel wants to be the preeminent power in the Middle East. That's the bottom line on it, and nobody's talking about that. I'm for it. If you are a politician and you're taking money from AIPAC, you're probably not going to get my vote. I don't care what persuasion you lean towards. Which brings us back to Epstein. Good old Effie. Good old Effie. Because Melania Trump last week, she decided to have a press conference. And I don't know who's advising these people, but I have never seen people lie the way these people lie. Okay? I've never seen it. They lie more than they breathe. Every word that comes out of their damn mouths is a lie. So Melania Trump decides to have it wasn't even a presser, it was a little speech. And apparently there's a book that is coming out in Great Britain that is showing beyond a shadow of a doubt that she was a hoe. Well, we don't need a book to tell us that. We've got prima facie evidence that goes back years that proves Melania Trump was a hoe. Okay? That she was selling it to the highest bidder. Oh, don't clutch your pearls and, oh no, he called the first lady a hoe. She was. Okay? That's just the bottom line on it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So she comes out with this presser and claims that anything that was said about her is a lie. She didn't know Jeffrey Epstein and all this other stuff. In other words, Melania Trump, in that presser, she pissed on your leg and told you it was raining. Oh, that's not me peeing on your leg. It's raining. Well, first hoe lady, how is it that it's raining indoors? I don't know. It must be a miracle. It must be a miracle. And then later on, she blew smoke up your butt and said it was a campfire. And y'all MAGA bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then, you know, this is why I love the internet, because the internet lit that butt up. How is it that you say you didn't know Jeffrey Epstein when in fact there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of pictures of you with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein? How did you get in front of... See, it would be different if the internet wasn't out there, where you could go and do research. See, years ago before the internet, the government could lie to you. That's what they did. The government for a long time lied about the civil rights era. And it wasn't until the television, the media companies started broadcasting the atrocities that was being committed against black people that other white people said, oh no, that's terrible. But prior to that, the media was lying to you. Newspapers were lying to you. But see, now, the internet ain't gonna lie to you. Well, it could, if you're not careful. But most cases, if you know what you're doing, you can find the facts. And the fact of the matter is, Melania, you knew Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein had sex with you and traded you off to Donald Trump. That's alleged. And this has been out here for years, yet you just now, this past week, decided to come out here and try to debunk it? Wait a minute, they've been saying this about you for years. Oh, by the way, if you weren't a hoe back then, now look, I'm proud that people can change your life, but by the way, you changed your life because you got an Epstein, a visa that was for smart people. An Einstein visa. Damn. You were doing all kinds of science on your back, huh? Hello? There's all kinds of pictures. There's all kinds of information that shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that not only did you know Jeffrey Epstein, you were intricately involved with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, we don't know whether or not you knew that they were trafficking young girls, but you certainly knew that they were trafficking Eastern European women, because that's what the Kit Kat Club was all about, is that Paolo Zampoli, who was Donald Trump's friend and Jeffrey Epstein's friend, was purposely bringing Eastern European women into America to try and get them to marry, and they were being paid a stipend. Hello? By the way, Zampoli also did teen beauty contest. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Just like Donald Trump. Now, y'all tell me, because I'm a little confused. Raise your hand if you think Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Go ahead, raise your hand. Raise them out so I can see them. I'm looking. Don't see any hands, because you know deep in your heart, even MAGA knows. That's why y'all are splitting from this guy now. Y'all know that he had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein. You all understand now that without a shadow of a doubt that Donald Trump was intricately involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And now it's even being suggested that Epstein didn't kill himself. I'm just saying. So at what point do you realize that this guy, oh, and by the way, let's not even talk about the enrichment that's going on with his family. And let's not talk about this war that he started with Iran, where now, prior to the war, the Strait of Hormuz was open. Now it's closed. And you, Donald Trump, can't even get it open. You and all your bluster. Your mighty military. You're afraid to go and theoretically you could go and try to open the Strait of Hormuz. But how many Americans are going to die because of your ignorance? This is a war that never needed to be fought. They already had an agreement with inspections. But Donald Trump said, oh, that wasn't good enough for him because it was created by Obama. And anything a black man does ain't good enough for the white man. So I'm going to do it over. So I'm going to tear it up. And then you allow Bibi Netanyahu to lead you into war. And now you're worse off now. Gas is $4-5 a gallon. The Strait of Hormuz is shut down. And, oh, by the way, here's the neat thing about it, is that now Donald Trump is trying to negotiate with Iran so that he and America can get a cut, because Iran wants to charge $2 million per ship when you go through that. Wait a minute. This is international waters. You can't put a toll on international waters. This guy, I laugh to keep from crying. And I think what bothers me the most is that so many Americans are so stupid. And then they have the unmitigated gall to say, oh, well, you know, Donald is playing three-dimensional chess while y'all are playing checkers. I would argue if I put a chessboard in front of Donald Trump right now, he wouldn't even know how to set up the damn pieces. Stop it. This man is a fool. He's a plumb fool. And he's making every American look bad. Oh, well, let's talk about the 25th Amendment. Well, look, if you do the 25th Amendment, who are you going to end up with, J.D. Vance? Oh, and I want to make sure I add this as well before we end this segment. So, if I go to a doctor, and let's say I got a broken leg, okay? I'm probably gonna need an orthopedic. And the orthopedic is gonna probably have to reset my leg and put a cast on it so that I can heal properly. Okay? I'm not gonna choose a chef. I'm not gonna choose a bus driver. I'm not gonna choose an equity manager. And I'm not gonna choose my son-in-law. So here we are at a critical point in world history. And the main negotiators is an equity fund manager and the president's son-in-law, both of which are trying to manipulate the situation just like they did in Ukraine to try to make money. America, we got a problem, and it's sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And he's sitting there because of you. Whether you didn't vote or you did vote. Which brings me back to Holly Schaffner. Because I really get upset with black people who don't vote. And I don't think they've thought it out as logically as I'm about to spell it out. But at the end of the day, if you're not even respecting me as a human being, why should I vote for you? Therein lies the problem. Yeah, I know. Okay. All right, we got to take a break. Our last break of the day. When we come back is what we must do. It's very important that we start doing something. I'll expound on that here in a moment. Thank you for listening. By the way, reminder that coming soon, The Pain of Vengeance, written by Dante Sinkay. That's me. That's what I write on it, Dante Sinkay. It's funny today, just quickly, I saw a guy today who was driving one of those Tesla trucks. And I saw that he was coming up on me from behind me, and I saw him in my rearview mirror. And on the front, it was red. And then, we kind of leaned around a curve, and then I saw on the side, it was green. And then on another side, it was black. And I was like, oh, red, black, and green truck, interesting. So he finally catches up with us, and he passes, and his license plate says Sinkay, Cinque. I pull up beside him, and I look. I'm saying to myself, that can't be a white boy. And it's a brother. Anyway, just stay tuned. I'm going to give you some information real soon. It'll be on my Facebook page, Instagram, of how you can get some discounts on the early release of The Pain of Vengeance, written by Dante Sinkay and narrated by me. All right. Anyway, take a break. Back in a moment is what we must do. You're listening to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, on joynetradio.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. Let me apologize right now to JC Love. This show is probably going to be a few minutes older, okay? It's going to be a few minutes, I shouldn't say older, but a few minutes long because, wow, I just had so much to talk about today, okay? So, it's what we must do. I talk about this all the time because, I told the story of the young brother earlier because I truly believe that each one of us must teach one of us, okay? And the opportunity presented itself where this young brother needed some guidance. And I wanted to teach him. I wanted to show him. I wanted to drop some knowledge on him. And that's what we've got to start doing. We've got to start doing that more and more. When we get an opportunity and we meet young brothers and young sisters, we can't be afraid not to tell them the story. Okay? Yeah, some of them are not going to listen. I know that. But see, here's my argument. Think about this from this perspective. Think about this. You ever been in a fight back in the day? And you're cornered and you really don't want to fight. But the opposition is almost forcing you to fight. And back in the day, you used to fight out in the street and you'd be fighting in the neighborhood. And usually some man or some woman sitting on the porch or walking down the street, they would jump in. Say, y'all ain't fighting in here. You go, who's your mama? Who your folks? Remember those days? My argument is that a lot of these young brothers and young sisters don't want to be out there doing what they're doing. That young brother I described earlier in the show is a classic example of that. He's not the exception. He's the rule. I would argue to you that if you had an opportunity to talk to every one of these young brothers that have been imprisoned, I would argue that 95% of them would say, if I had a chance to do it over, I would. You say that in your life. You've made some mistakes. I've made some mistakes. If I had a chance to do some of those things over, I would. I'll tell you one right off the bat. I'll tell you, something that I probably would have been great at, but I just didn't do it, was a coach. I talk to people now. I talk to young people now, okay? I've been doing it for years. I put together rites of passage camps. I had organizations. I took kids on field trips. I would have been a great coach if I had a chance to do it again. You would do the same. And my argument is that the majority of these young brothers and sisters out here, if somebody would have just said, hey, come here, let me tell you something. Because that's what happened to me. So I grew up without a dad. But there were a lot of men in my life. There was my preacher, there was my Boy Scout leader, there were my coaches, there were deacons at the church I was attending, Bullock Temple Sammy Church, right across the street from Little Rock Central. All of them were my surrogate fathers. I always say, Ben Madry, Clifton Towns, Samuel Hudson Sr. Those three men, without those three men, I wouldn't be sitting here today. They were my surrogate fathers. I remember Mr. Towns when they were having a Cub Dad weekend. I was a young Cub Scout. They were going on a weekend trip, going down to Camp Quapaw right outside of Benton, Arkansas. And the whole point of a Cub Dad weekend was to get dads involved with their kids. I wanted to go, but I couldn't go. I told my mom I can't go. She said, why? I said, because I don't have no dad. And she told Mr. Towns. And Mr. Towns said, what do you mean you don't have no dad? You're going. You're going. I'll be your dad. Wow. That was my really first encounter with Clifton Earl Towns, the first. And became great friends. He was a great mentor. In fact, when he passed away, I spoke at his funeral. Wow. So my point is this, is that each one of us must teach one of us. That's an old saying. So every person that I meet, I told a young brother this. So here's the thing. As you all know, I'm agnostic. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. But, in most faiths, they talk about living forever, particularly in the Christian community. When you accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, you live for eternity. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's up to you. I'm not trying to judge you one way or the other. But I've been saying for decades now that I have another way that I can live forever that's more effective. And here's why. Because that young brother that I talked about earlier in the show, that young 21-year-old brother, and I told him this. I said, see, here's a way you can live forever. That every time I meet a young person, I try to drop knowledge on them. And I try to drop it on them so heavy that they can't help but to say, wow. And then you know what's going to happen to that young person? That young person is going to go and tell somebody else that I met that crazy man with a beard and he dropped this on me. And there's going to be a huge debate and conversation with his friends about that knowledge that I dropped on him. And then you know what else is going to happen? Is that same young man that I dropped that knowledge on, when he raises that 6-month-old boy, I will probably never see him again. But you know what? That 6-month-old boy that he talked about in our conversation is going to get some of the knowledge that I dropped on his daddy. Whew. And you know what's going to happen then? Because that 6-month-old boy is going to grow up, hopefully, and be the man that his daddy wants him to be. And he's going to have kids, and he's going to drop knowledge that his daddy dropped, that his daddy got from that man with the beard. He's going to drop it on his kids. And his kids are going to drop it on his kids and their kids. And all of a sudden, guess what? The knowledge that began with that crazy man with the beard is living through generation, through generation, through generation. You see, that's what each one teach one means, is that if we teach people, if we tell people the truth, you see that old saying, truth crushed to earth will rise again. You see, Donald Trump and his ilk can lie all they want, but at some point, the truth is gonna come out. What's done in the dark will come to the light, my brothers and sisters. And now all of a sudden, the light is shining. You know, sunshine is a great disinfectant. And we're beginning to see the sunshine fall on this Trump administration. From his wife to his children to him. Yeah. That's what it's all about. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, coming up in the next few days, we're going to give you some details on how you can pre-purchase The Pain of Vengeance with a 15% discount. We'll tell you about that here coming up. But as I close, I want to give you a quote. Because we talk a lot about patriots and patriotism and being an American and how we should support our country. Here's a quote from the great, late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Patriotism means confronting your country when it's wrong, not clapping when it's corrupt. Y'all have a great day. Hope you enjoy the show. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices, every day on joynetradio.com.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.